Hi there and welcome to another edition of the How to Make Money with podcast. My name is Dijken van Niekerk and this podcast is your essential guide to practical, innovative and sometimes downright surprising ways to earn some extra cash. There are many opportunities out there, you just need to know where to look. And this week we are talking about something a little different. The topic is how to make money with dog breeding. Yes, raising puppies can be a real side hustle. And if it's done properly and ethically, it can be very, very profitable. Joining me today is Charlotte van Dijken. She's a practice manager and an experienced breeder at a Pretoria-based company, Irmadu. And this company has been breeding dogs for around 40 years. It's been around for a long time. Charlotte, thank you so much for your time today. Just briefly, what is the history of Irmadu and what do you do exactly?
Thank you, Ryk. Irmadu Kennels was started by Dr. Irma Bailey. She is a veterinarian here in Centurion. Around about 40 years ago, we breed with Yorkshire Terriers and also for the last about 15 years, Beaver Terriers. Because we are based in Centurion, it's been a very good choice for us. The market in Gauteng is great. And because she's been going for so long, we've got a very good reputation here in South Africa.
How big is the business? How many puppies do you produce, if that is the right word, annually?
It depends. Some years are better than others, but you're looking at about around 80 to 100 a year.
Now, obviously, it's a business, so it must be profitable. But in this podcast, we are looking at side hustles and people who, for example, have a full-time job, but they don't earn enough. They need to supplement their income. And they can do that through a side hustle. So can you maybe just give us the business model? And do you think it is possible for someone to have a full-time job and to breed puppies on the side to earn some extra cash?
That really, I think, depends on your situation. It's a very time-intensive business, especially when there are small puppies. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a lot of long nights going through night for weeks on end sometimes. And you need to be able to, through the day, every 4 hours or so, check on them or do some feedings. So it's a very time-intensive job. If you've got personnel who can help you, cleaning and looking after the pups and looking after the mums, that will definitely make a difference. And if you are home-based, maybe working online, that will also be a good side hustle.
And as you say, you need time. It is labor intensive, if you put it that way. So if somebody works from home, it could be...
Yeah, if you work from home and you've got some flexible hours, then it could work. Like I said, it's not always that you are busy 24 hours a day. But sometimes, especially if you've got small pups, newborns, and the mum needs help or there's not enough milk or the litter is very big or anything like that, it can get quite time-consuming and labor-intensive, and you need to be able to, every few hours, help the pups, make them drink, whatever the case might be. So at times, you are going to be very, very busy. So if you've got a flexible work schedule, absolutely, you can do that.
But there are, I'm sure, tips and tricks of the trade. And let's start with the dog breeds. Obviously, you would like to pick the one that is the most profitable. Irmadu specializes, as you've said, in Yorkies and Beavers. Why did you pick those, for example? And are there potentially other breeds that could be more profitable?
Absolutely, yes. I think when you're choosing a dog breed to breed with, it's important to have a love for the breed. You need to be passionate about that particular breed, whether it's because you like the look of the dog or the personality. That's definitely a factor. And you also need to look at the market, what puppies are popular. In South Africa, traditionally, the bigger dogs like your Rottweilers, Dobermans, Labradors, German Shepherds used to be very popular. But as the whole urban setting is changing and everyone is moving into smaller apartments and you don't have the space necessarily for a big dog, the smaller breeds definitely are getting more popular. So Yorkies, Maltese, Schnauzers, those kinds of things, and even Dachshunds, small dogs that you can take anywhere and you can take them on holiday and take them to the restaurant. And those kinds of breeds are getting very, very popular, especially in the last 10, 15 years. But choosing a breed that you love, I think, is key. The whole thing about ethical breeding is keeping the breed pure and keeping the breed alive for people to enjoy. And there are specific traits of every breed that speaks to a specific kind of person. So if you can keep that breed alive and it's because you love the breed, then you are going to be more successful than just choosing one because you're looking for a quick fix to get some money. They are very expensive dogs, like your French bulldogs. They cost easily around 40,000 Rand a pup. So yes, you're going to make more money, but there are also health implications and complications with those dogs. Difficult breed to breed with, and your market is going to be smaller. So it all depends on how much space have you got. Can you accommodate 10 big dogs or 20 small dogs? Or, there are many factors to consider when you're looking at breed.
We're going to look at those in a minute, but let's talk about the pricing. I've seen some dogs, as you've said, 30,000 Rand plus, and that is very, very expensive, and it would take a special buyer to buy such an expensive puppy. On the other hand, you only have to sell one puppy to earn the same revenue as you would for a cheaper dog. I don't know if cheaper is the right word, of say 6,000 or 7,000 Rand. So how's the pricing determined? And how do you then determine the size of the market you can sell those puppies to?
That's actually quite a difficult question. For the last 15 years or so, 10 years, prices have been relatively stable in terms of what the people can afford. We weren't able to increase our prices for many years because there was just not a market for it and the economy couldn't handle it. And then you start, having issues with covering your costs versus what your income is. So it's a difficult question to answer beforehand. There is a big market now for the more expensive breeds like your Frenchies and all that. Strangely enough, even though we see a sharp decline in the whole veterinary industry, where people don't have money to spend on their pets, you have a big market where people spend tens of thousands of rands purchasing a puppy, never mind looking after that dog. So it really depends on where you're based. And, in Joburg, for example, you can definitely sell more expensive puppies than you would in Pretoria, for example. And I think even in the Western Cape, I think there's a bigger market there for your more expensive breeds. It's important to not overprice your pups, but it's also important not to underprice them. You want responsible buyers, and you need to make a profit, even if it's just a small profit. Breeding is not a quick fix for a financial dilemma if you're in one. It is very costly, can be very expensive. Your vet costs is definitely a factor. And you've got lots of after hours emergencies and things like that you're not necessarily budgeting for. And it's not a steady income. You can't say I'm going to have 30,000 Rand a month because you don't know when the puppies will be. You don't know if you'll be able to sell them. There are breeders who start with the more expensive breeds and then they can't sell the puppies and then you sit with them. And you have to drop your prices and all of that.
Just give us a sense of the costs and, how long it takes from the birth of the puppies to when you can sell them.
Costs, yes. There are many ways to cut your costs, but in the long run, it's more expensive. For example, if you don't feed them a very good quality food, that is going to cost you a lot of money. You're going to have lots more health issues, not just with the puppies, but with the adults as well. In the long run, for your breed health, you need to be absolutely on your ball when it comes to diet, when it comes to healthcare in general. You have to have a very good relationship with a vet that is close to you and that is able to assist you even after hours. And then a dog is covered 63 days later, puppies are born. With the birthing, there can be complications. There can be a cesarean, which is costly. If there are bad complications, you can lose the mum and you've got puppies that you have to bottle feed for weeks. So there's costs there. And then the puppies usually can go to their new homes at around 8 weeks of age. By that time, they've had their first vaccinations and they've been dewormed 2 or 3 times. Sometimes some health issues before that time, a little bit of diarrhea or anything like that can happen. You need to take care of the mum, and they cost you a lot of money while the puppies are drinking. So, yeah, it's about 8 weeks from birth to when they are sold. And you never know when a dog will come on heat and when she's covered, if it was a successful covering. So there's lots of waiting time in between. And these are natural processes that can't necessarily be hurried. So you just have to wait and hope for the best.
I assume the size of a litter is very important because that could have a significant impact on the final financial outcome.
Yes, absolutely. Again, not something that you can determine beforehand. Sometimes you get small litters, sometimes you get big litters. With your small breed of dogs, the litters are usually on average 3 to 4 puppies in a litter. With your bigger dogs like your Rottweilers, Labradors, German Shepherds, you can have 12, 13, 14 pups in a litter, which is obviously a lot of work, but it's very good money. So if you've got the space for it, big dog breeds is a good financial choice to make.
I don't know if you can answer this, but is there a targeted return on investment you have on puppies, or how do you determine whether a litter, for example, would be profitable and sufficiently profitable to make it worth your while?
Yeah, that is a difficult question to answer. You can't work on a hard and fast rule. During the course of the years that we've been breeding, some years are excellent and you've just got big litters, everyone's healthy, there's no issues, you don't have a lot of extra unbudgeted costs, and you make a lot of money. Other years, it's just no one wants to come on heat, and there's just small litters, and you've got all kinds of problems, and then you don't make money, and you can actually turn quite a bit of a loss. So, dog breeding is not one of the things that I will say, do that if you are looking for a steady income. This is something you do for the love of it. And it's very rewarding and it can be quite profitable, but a lot of times it is hard work and it doesn't always pay off.
I think that's the case for many, many businesses. But as you say, if you know what you're doing, you will be a lot more successful.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why it's so important to start with good breeding stock. And, you need to make sure that the dogs that you start with and going forward, you have to have a code of ethics that you work on. And these dogs must be registered pure breed dogs. At the moment, there's only one kennel union in South Africa. It is called the Kennel Union of Southern Africa, KUSA. They are the only accredited FCI club in South Africa. And if your dogs are not KUSA registered, then you cannot be guaranteed that they are good stock. Unfortunately, that is the reality of it. And if you start with good stock and you keep to your code of ethics and you do the best that you can for your dogs, that's going to be the best outcome in the long run.
Let's talk about logistics, because dogs make a noise. They are very, very busy, and it could be an issue if you try to breed with dogs within a residential area in your backyard, for example. What advice would you have for people regarding, breeding puppies at home?
It will depend, again, on what breed you've got. Some breeds are noisier than others. If you start breeding with Rottweilers, for example, you can start with only 2 or 3 dogs. Not a big noise impact. You don't need a massive yard or anything like that. So that's a good choice if you don't have an area where you are sort of isolated from your neighbors. Then again, if you're going with the smaller breeds, you might have 10 or 20 dogs, which is definitely a noise factor. And I would suggest starting with what have you got in terms of facilities. If you've got a lot of space, then you've got more options. If you don't have a lot of space, maybe think of going large or medium breed dog so that you can have less dogs, less noise. Business rights, I think, is also something that you can look at, especially if you are going to start doing this more full-time job, because you can make a living of it if you really put your heart into it. But then I would say, get some business rights, make sure that you're in an area where you are far from your neighbors and that the neighbors know that this is what you're starting to do. So that if there are any issues, you can sort it out beforehand before you start doing this and then you've got a lot of noise complaints and things like that.
The gestation period you referred to earlier, around 60 days or 2 months, would it mean that you can have more than one breeding pair to ensure that you have regular litters?
Absolutely, yes, yes. That's why I said now, if you're going for a bigger breed, Labrador, Rottweiler, Great Dane, then I would suggest you start small, 2 or 3 females. If you can get a male of your own, but sometimes you can collaborate with other breeders and use their males and just start with 2 or 3 females. If you've got smaller dogs, I would suggest going a little bit bigger. Otherwise, it's not going to be profitable for you. It's a cost-intensive business. So if you don't have the turnover, then it's not going to be profitable. So with the small dogs, I would say at least 10, if you can do it, if you've got the space for it. If you're not doing it for financial gain, obviously 1 or 2 dogs is fine. It's perfect. You can keep the breed alive. You can still get all the enjoyment of breeding with the dogs and caring for the puppies and finding good homes for them. But then it's not going to be, for-profit business.
Obviously, you need to sell these puppies and you need to find buyers. How do you go about finding buyers?
Again, that's where Kusa comes in. Lots of people, especially since COVID, there's been a mass of puppy scams on the internet. So people pay for pups and they never receive them, or they pay for this and they get something else. So there's so many scams at the moment that people are very, very reluctant to buy if they don't get it from a reputable breeder. How do they know you're a reputable breeder? Go to the kennel union. Ask them, please give me a list of all the breeders for this breed or that breed. So again, your ties to a union like Kusa is going to be important. That will help you to build a reputation, a good brand name. People will know that you're an ethical breeder and that you're doing this for the breed and not just for the money. And then, social media, nice website, and try to get the word out about why this breed, what makes this breed special. Why are people looking for this particular breed or this particular breeder? So you're going to have to think a little bit about your market in terms of that. But I would say start with ethical breeding. Then you are halfway there.
Just lastly, what tips would you have for someone who loves dogs and would like to start a business like that on the side? What are the key things they should ensure they get right?
Besides all the things that we've already talked about, breeding with puppies, it's a very rewarding business, but there are a lot of emotion and physical toll that you have to be aware of. For many people, when they start with this, or if they've got one female that they covered and now they've got puppies, it's very difficult for them to let go of those pups. You put so much time and effort into them, and they are, as you know, all dog lovers know, every puppy is special. Everyone has a specific personality, a specific look, and you really do fall in love with these pups.
So there's an emotional challenge.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And, when things go wrong and you lose a puppy, it can take its toll if you're not prepared for it. The reality is very rewarding, extremely nice job environment. It's always nice to walk in and there's just a load of puppies greeting you. It's really a wonderful business, but you need to be sure that you are capable of putting in the time and effort and then letting go of those dogs. And if you can do that, then you will be golden. Absolutely. And the thing is, it's nice to give that love to other people, to have people come in and looking for a puppy and their faces just light up when they see that one, that special one, and they say, this is mine. It really is very rewarding.
Charlotte, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing your insights. I think, as you've said, you can make money, but you need to know what you're doing. So doing your homework is absolutely essential. And it sounds like it's not only about money. You grow attached to the dogs and the animals, and yes, it may be tough to give away, but the time they spend with you is very, very emotionally rewarding. And I think many people can regard this as much more, or maybe a little more than just a side hustle. Could maybe change your life and bring some pleasure in there as well. Charlotte, thank you so much for your time. That was Charlotte van Dijken. She is from Imadu, and it's a breeding business in Pretoria. It has been around for 40 years. I think she gave some excellent tips on how to approach or consider starting a breeding business as a side hustle. That's it for this episode of the How to Make Money with podcast. I hope you found it useful and maybe even a little inspiring. If you've enjoyed it, please like, follow or subscribe, depending on your platform, and share it with someone who's also looking for smart ways to earn more. Thanks for listening, and catch you next time as we explore more practical ways to make money.